Welcome to the Foster Your Passion podcast, where entrepreneurs, who are mostly women, share their passions, their lessons, and leave you feeling uplifted, motivated, and possibly even inspired to go and foster your own passion. I'm your host, Hayley Foster, and this is the Foster Your Passion podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Foster Your Passion podcast. I am here today with the amazing intuitive woman, Tina Conroy, and we were just talking, because this is take 3, about how the first podcast I ever recorded with Tina was actually the first podcast I ever recorded for somebody else and for myself, actually, and kind of got me into loving the whole podcast thing. I was telling her before, I was so hungover. I don't even know how I did the job that I did on that podcast. I still have it, and I listened to it recently. I was like, wow, pretty impressive. I ended up making it through it, and it was so much fun, and it flew by, and I remember being so nervous. I think it's so funny. And now I just I jump on. Obviously, we're having technical difficulties today, but it's sort of like, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you, which was my podcast last week with Shireen, which was awesome. But it was funny, we were talking about how the things that challenge us are the things that change us. So we have been challenged today technologically, and, we sort of get knocked down and then we just get back up again. So
I love it. I hear that song.
good.
All good. Yep. Well, you did a great job, because thank you for that, information. I never would have guessed that you were hungover, because you were amazing. And I love that. I was your first podcast. So you were, having the first guest. And that was back in 2016. And
a long time ago.
It is. And you are, I look at you now and, you're podcasting, you're on Instagram, you're doing reels, which I have to pick your brain on because I have no idea. You're in Clubhouse. So yeah, I love it all. And so here we are still plugging away. So I always love what you do, support what you do. And I've been a foster woman for quite some time. So I'm very proud to say that.
Yes, you have. And I appreciate your support always. So thank you for always being a foster woman and always showing up at local events, which is what I truly love about my business, even though I've brought in so many new people from all over the country. But I still just, I love my local people. I love hugging, which was a very difficult thing to not do during the pandemic. And it was we had our little bubble, and thankfully I had my stepson's mom was here, and I was able to hug another human aside from my husband. And so it was, that was hard for me. I'm just I'm a people person. I've kept my business where it is for so long because I really just love that connection of the face-to-face and being able to see you guys and sit around a table and feel that energy in a room. And so, I've always hesitated about being virtual. And then, you get into a situation. Well, a couple of years ago, I started doing some virtual groups. But no, then you get into a situation like the pandemic, which is sort of ironic because even though my business was virtual, I was in this position where I was like, you know what? I really don't know if I should be outreaching to do consulting for women right now, because we were all in this place of what the hell does the future look like? And so I put it on pause for 9 months. I didn't touch my business, which is crazy. And then this isn't about me, so we're going to move on. But then I revamped it, obviously. And here we are. Podcast is back up and running. I'm recording again. It's super fun. I love it. I missed it. And I get to connect with women like you that are amazing. Aww. So let's take a journey back in time. And I want to hear from you sort of how you knew that this was sort of in you. I just want to tell a quick funny story. So earlier today, I was on Clubhouse, and I was on mute, and I sneezed. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, I'm so glad I didn't just pee on myself, because I do that. I'm a mom. I had 2 puppies, and every now and then I'll laugh, I'll sneeze, I'll cough, and pee happens. Shit happens, pee happens. And so I got up, I went to the bathroom. I peed, and then I came, this is such TMI. And then I came back to Clubhouse and a new person was talking, and she happened to be talking about the pelvic floor, and she was a pelvic floor coach. So here was like my intuition, maybe in some
Yep.
sort of way.
Yeah.
But I thought it was just a funny story to share that we didn't share in take one and take two. So mixing it up now for take three. But I thought it was a funny story to share. Like, I've always felt like I've had a sixth sense, where like, and I feel my dad's presence and things like that. But I want to talk about you, and I want to hear, sort of how you realized that this was something that was in you.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So first of all, I just want to piggyback on a moment that you said you put your business on pause for 9 months and then you came back. That's an intuitive moment. That's an intuitive hit. So just that alone, you listen to your gut, you listen to your inner whatever they call the inner guidance system, and what just happened with Clubhouse, those are right what we call like synchronicities, right? So noticing the synchronicities, noticing the signs. Now you'd say like, why did that happen? But it's again, like energy is always flowing and always moving, and there's always the signs always around. So signs could be from your dad, like past loved ones, and it also could be things that you need to say to someone. You may hear it over and over again. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, but I'll go back a little bit. But I think it's important to kind of always acknowledge it. And when you acknowledge it and you're aware of it, more of it will happen and you're developing it more and more. So what kind of put me on the intuitive journey, I should say, or being passionate about teaching about intuition and developing it more and more for myself was probably, as a child, and you'll hear this a lot, a lot of children in general are very intuitive. They have no filter. You'll hear children just say what they are on their mind, right? They're not filtered. And some children will talk about imaginary friends, they'll, things like that. And then as we get older, they say around this age of 7, they go to school. So you don't want to be abnormal or talk differently. For me, I don't really remember having an imaginary friend. I don't remember seeing spirit or seeing anything like that. But I do remember when I was a young teen, and I would say between like 10 and 12-ish, I felt spirit. I mean, I can say that now, but then I didn't think I had an awareness about it. I think I was just afraid of the dark. I was brought up Catholic, although not very ultra Catholic. We didn't go to church, but I did go to Catholic school. And so I felt a presence in my room. I didn't feel like I was alone. And so there I thought it had to be the devil and I was going to hell, because what else would it be? Right? Like what else could it be? So,
I want to know what you were doing that's what was crossing your mind at that
it was
age.
like, it was like, okay, there's something bad. What could it be? Because I only knew like the religious context of it.
Right.
But as time went on, I had prophetic dreams. In college, I had a very prophetic dream that I speak about often on many interviews. And I was dating my husband. We were dating at the time in college. I had a full-on dream of like he was being chased. And anyway, make a long story short, calling the fraternity, not on a cell phone, on a landline, me saying, did all these things happen? He was like a little bit more than that. He was shocked. And things like that would happen from time to time. I was a young mom at 24. I had 2 kids by 29. And I walked into a yoga studio basically to save my mental health. And yoga saved my life. I started doing and practicing yoga. That led me to Reiki. And then Reiki led me to this work, really. And so I feel like my spirit, when I consider my spirit, we all have our own spirit, guided me along the way. Like, this is safe, let's do this. This is safe, let's do this. And so when I started to receive Reiki and then learn Reiki for others and give a Reiki treatment, I kept seeing images in my mind. I would feel things, I would hear things. And besides thinking I was going crazy, I knew there was something more. And I think just like anything else, most people then say, okay, I need a mentor or I need some development, right? So I just, I didn't want to be that person's going, hey, by the way, Hayley, this is going, you know what I mean? So I wanted to really be honest about it. I didn't want to be like the Long Island medium or some crackpot. And I'm also a mom, and, who am I coming out of the spiritual closet? So this has been an evolution, right? It's an evolution. And when you start to say, these are the things I'm doing, or these are things I'm feeling. And so everything was an evolution. Yoga led to Reiki. Reiki led to card readings. I was safe to say angel card readings. And now I don't use any cards. I might do it for fun, but if I give a reading, it's all really tapping into your energy body, or maybe tapping into your past loved ones that have passed. So that's kind of what just kept leading me. I kept following the breadcrumbs, I think. I kept listening to that inner voice. And along the way, as I was building my career and building my business and getting more confidence in myself and stepping more and more out of the spiritual closet, I realized I was so intrigued with intuition to help other women. And I think that's where we sort of met. It was sort of like, how can I get this feeling across to everybody, this concept across that we're all intuitive, especially women, right? Because that's who I work with, my population, and know that how can intuition make our lives richer and more exciting? And why would you want to develop intuition? So that kind of put me on that path. And we all have intuition. We have varying ranges of developing it. I think that if you have a desire to develop it and want to develop it, it's just like going to the gym. I know you're a big gym goer, and right. So that's, so if you go and you start lifting a weight over time, you're going to see the results. Same thing with intuition. So intuition is that sixth sense. And they say historically women have more intuition or deeper intuition, that women's intuition, the mother's intuition. I mean, any moms or women in general that are listening, we have a heightened sense. And I really feel that's because not that men don't, just that we're more open to that feminine quality. We're open to the yin, the flow. We're a little bit more, allowing. We're not as this is a difference between male and female. And we have both male and female energy. So now I'm just excited that I get to do this work all the time, full time, and share intuition with people. And I just kind of like to say that intuition is for you. So when you get an intuitive hit, like you did, oh, okay, I'm going to put my business on pause for 9 months. And then you're like, no, I'm ready. Right. So intuition's for us. Psychic is when you're picking up information about somebody else. And then mediumship is getting that information from someone that's passed. So it's almost like, okay, dad's in spirit, dad's speaking to me. I'm going to translate that to best I can to tell you, right? So there's a three-way communication.
Right.
But with psychic, I'm picking up your energy, what's going on with you, present, so forth. So yeah, so exciting stuff.
Super exciting. It's super fun. And so, I mean, I feel like as I said before, I definitely feel like I have a very strong intuitive sense. And I also, crazy enough, I see it in my kids. I'll be thinking, and my mom always says this too, I'll call my mom and she's like, you got the vibe. Because my mom and I have this sync with each other where I always know when, I don't know, every time I get her feeling, I'm like, oh, I need to call my mom. And so I get that from my kids too. I know it may sound crazy to some people, but sometimes Jackson will say something to me that is completely I don't even know why she would be thinking about it, but I'm thinking about it. And it's not like I've said it out loud or anything, and it comes out of nowhere. Marley does the same thing. And so I feel like my girls have that intuitive sense as well. So would you say that it's a genetic thing?
Yeah, there's so many rules of thought on this. Some people will say that it's completely genetic, and there's two rules. There's this controversy, right? So it's that it's genetic, and that you have to be gifted, and your grandmother had it and your mother had it, and it gets passed down. And then there's this whole other rule of thought. I mean, we are in this Aquarian age, right? And look at all that's happened. That no, we all have it, and we're all vibing at this. We all got this vibe, and we are now at this point. And I'm kind of talking consciously, where we are in the world and times, that everybody's kind of raising up their vibration. Your girls are, in this next generation, right? And so we're all kind of raising up, and we're vibing at a different level, right? So you've always had it, but maybe now it's increasing and you and the girls have that vibe going on. That I love that you have the vibe. And I have that with my son and daughter in different ways. My son and I, we actually speak telepathically to each other. I mean, he's 27 at this point. Literally, there's been times where I'm like, okay, you need to call me. Like in my mind, I'm like speaking to him and it's like, okay, phone call's coming. And he's like, oh, you got that? We got that thing, Mom. We got that thing. Or I'll hear a song or I'll go to text him and he's already texting me. Right? How many times does that happen? Like you're
That's like
texting,
me and my mom, same thing, like
exactly.
telepathically.
Yeah. And so I personally believe that even though my grandmother did have prophetic dreams, and I guess you would call her psychic, I didn't know that then. So, but I do feel that everybody has the ability to develop this. To what level? Again, like I could play basketball and not be Michael Jordan, but I might be a pretty good basketball player, right? So it's sort of like that. So what I love about it is the fact that you even have that with your mom and the girls. The more you're aware of it and the more that you let them speak about it, the more that it will assist them in their life, right? And the thing about intuition is really cool. It makes life. I had to read a study. I had to do a talk about this, and I was finding like a lot of facts. More people that are intuitive, like Steve, you read things about like Steve Jobs. Intuitive people are more successful. They're happier. They make better decisions. They have mostly better relationships. And they're more fulfilled. I mean, I want that, I want all those things. So, yeah, it's really exciting to just keep doing it and keep developing it. And what I would say to people is, I think the biggest thing I get is, well, I'm afraid to develop my intuition because something bad might happen, and what I say to that is, it's possible that you might have a dream and that may come true, but there's so many other wonderful things. And so look at all the positive, right? It's like if I'm going to get the quote wrong, but if you look at the positive, you get the positive. You're looking at the negative, you get the negative, right? I don't believe in negative energy. I don't believe in all this other stuff. And if you had asked me years ago, I might be like, oh, there's ghosts and hauntings. That's the thing for another day. I don't believe in that at all, only because now I can speak to people's dead, people that have passed. And don't be afraid of them. Be afraid of people. Like,
Right.
I always joke and say, they're in a good place. You may have had a difficult relationship with them, but they're in a good place. Don't be afraid of them. They're not here haunting us. Be afraid of the regular people that are walking around,
Right,
So,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
so true. I always say like my dad is like his hand is always on my shoulder guiding
Yeah.
me. And I feel that, like honestly, like take 3 right now is better than take 1. And I'm like, there is a reason why take 1 it did not work and take 2 did
Yeah.
not work, because this conversation is better than the previous conversation we
Right.
had. So someone didn't want conversation number 1 to be our podcast today. So here we
And
are, take
I
3.
do feel that. And I think the fact that you're open to that, and that exists and that you have, so, and I love kind of talking about this, and I guess this is where the conversation is going. They help us orchestrate from the other side, right? So they're there to orchestrate, to guide, to assist. And when you feel them, you might physically feel them, like just like feel, when I say feel them, like feel a hug or just know what they would feel like. Sometimes you might like smell them, have a cologne or something. Or just have a thought of them. I think people dismiss this. If you're having a thought, like a heavy thought about them, it's interesting how that day might play out, or a song, the more you speak about them and the more you speak to them, the more you are making that relationship. And because everybody can do this, really, everybody can really connect to their loved ones. It's just allowing yourself to know that it's there. I mean, once you pass the bridge of, I know they're there and I can connect with them. And then there's the people that like know they're not there and they're not, then that's a different, like, I'm not trying to make any skeptic a believer. But
Yeah.
once you know that, then there's just so much more, it's just a different relationship,
It's like a light. For me,
Yeah.
it's more of like, it is that embrace. It is that comfort and it's guidance, and it's, I'm also a big believer in my gut, right? So you mentioned this earlier, like I have a chapter in my book called Trust Your Gut. And I'm a big believer in, like, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And we say this to our kids too, like, hey guys, like if it doesn't feel like it's something you should be doing, then you shouldn't be doing it, because your gut is, I called it like the database of all of the knowledge that you've had up until this point. And it's like the epicenter of your emotions. And so that is why, because when something is about to happen or you're about to do something, it triggers the emotion before your brain can actually register what it is you're about to do. And the emotion hits you in the gut as like this visceral feeling of, should I do this? Should I not do this? Does it feel right? Does it not feel right?
Yeah.
And I think, as you were saying before, like when you trust that instinct, that gut, that intuition, whatever it is, it does lead you to being a more confident and happier human, because you almost, you trust yourself
Yes, that's
more,
it. That's
right?
it. And you know what? Exactly. And I think what's so interesting to say is we've all been there. And you could probably think of a time right now where you didn't trust your gut and you did something else, or you didn't do what you thought you should do. Those are the lessons also that strengthen your intuition, because you can actually look back on, it's just like business, right? You can look back on business and say, I tried to, launch this whatever, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen. Right. So you learn from that and you move on, right? You don't just crumble and close the doors. So it's the same with intuition. Think of the times that you didn't listen and it didn't go your way. And now you can look back and say, oh, right. Okay, now I'm going to listen. So it's like they're always a learning, there's always development. One of my favorite things that I do it myself, even now, I do with my students, is I say, take a notebook. This sounds so simple, but not everyone does it. Take a little notebook or a pad, walk around, and anytime you have those synchronistic moments, or if you think of your dad, or just like when you were on the clubhouse and there's a synchronistic event, write that down. It may seem so silly, but the more that you're aware of it and you actually write it down on paper, you're saying to the universe, I'm open for miracles. I'm open for synchronicities, and you're right. The successful people that are happier, that have listened to their gut, we can call it many things: gut, intuition, higher self. Some people might call it, God, like outside of themselves, but we are a spirit body. We're a spirit in the body. We're living, and people that have passed, they still have a spirit body. They've just are on the other side, or maybe they're really here, just on the other piece of the paper,
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
very
I always
cool.
say my dad's always watching, except for the moments he should not be watching.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get that a lot. People are like, are they watching? I'm like, they're watching when they need to.
Right.
The best part, the best part of the healing that I find, and again, I'm just the translator, is when I can bring a spirit through, and they can actually say so you would be the sitter. That's what they consider you, a sitter, right? And so you can bring the spirit through, and the spirit can actually say something to me and translate it that you just did. So what they're doing is they're showing continuity of life, right? So for example, if I said, and this is not a reading, and I'm not in a reading space right now, but if I said to you, I have your dad here, and I give, a couple evidential information, and I said, he just saw that you booked a trip and you were going to Florida, but you were about to book this plane and you switched to that plane. And you're like, oh my gosh, I just did that. That's the stuff that I love to share when it comes through, because it shows that person like they're really here with me, right? Even if you're a believer, it's like, wow, and so the messages and the continuity of life for me has really helped so many people heal. I just did a reading the other day, and this woman's husband had passed. And I'm like, he's talking about the tattoo you have to do. And she goes like that. She turned out, she goes, I just got it. And I was just like, oh, thank you. Like, how could I know that? So it was like, he needed to say like, I want to recognize this. I just got chills because
I did too.
her arm's like this. And like, she's like, oh, and I'm like, but you're getting another one too. She's like, yeah, like Thursday, I'm getting another one. And so it was just, that stuff to me is like, to this day, I'm still like, wow, like life is after life. Like we go on, our spirit goes on, our soul goes on. And there's a lot of healing, there's a lot of healing with that.
Okay. Could I just pause you for a second?
Yes.
I just booked my mom's flight from Florida. And I was going to book her on Monday, but I decided to book her on Sunday because it's Father's Day.
Okay. All right. So I guess I was pulling something in there and I'm like, no, I'm not in a reading mode, but all right. So thank you, Dad.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my God, that's so funny. I was like, wait, is she really saying this right now?
Here I am
Yeah.
like taking like a pseudo thing and I'm like, okay, I don't know why I'm saying this now, but I'm going to say it. And that's how it happens. It's like, I'm going to just say this about the trip. I don't know. So
So
yeah,
funny. So
there
yeah,
you go.
so I didn't realize it was Father's Day. And so I was like, don't come Monday, come Sunday. It's Father's Day. It'd be so nice for you to be here. So,
Right. I
so
love it.
funny that you said that.
So
So freaking
connected.
random. So
Yeah. But
I
it's not.
love that.
It's
I
and that's
love that stuff.
it's
I've been
this
into
is
like,
perfect. This is why they're on take 3.
exactly, exactly. And I mean, we've talked about this. Like I've been into card readings and, my grandfather, um, rest in peace. He used to do, and my mom too, when she was younger, they used to do Ouija boards.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
big. Yeah,
Yeah,
Ouija
it
was
was
big.
totally big. And she always said, like, she's like, I had to stop doing it because I didn't want to talk to the people that were
Yeah.
showing up. And
Yeah.
I think it started to freak her out. So she kind of pulled back from doing it. But
Yeah. Yeah. And
she
you know
also
what? Well,
smoked a lot of weed. So
yeah, that's kind of can be together. But a lot of the tools that people will use, they use tarot cards, oracle cards, right? Pendulums, Ouija boards. There's some few other things, but those are like what I would say they call them divination tools. So they can assist and they can help. And I think that along the journey they can be very helpful. And it's also again a little guided in. I think I hid behind cards. I love cards. I love oracle cards, and I'm saying it again for the like second year in a row. Like one day I'm going to make my card deck, but I also hid behind them a bit because to just be raw and real and just be like, this is what's going on. So I think
Mhm.
just we have an evolution of how we learn, and but I love that. I think that there's if and just for anyone if they're ever interested in this kind of stuff, like spiritualism goes way back. That's like mediumship and spiritualism. It goes way back. There are some amazing books out if you're interested in like people history buffs. It's pretty cool stuff that you can read, like table tipping, and it's fun reading. It's fun reading.
Cool. All right. We'll
Yeah.
have to get a book list from you going.
That'd be like a favorite book list of like spiritualism and spiritual topics. Yeah.
That's cool. Is that on your website?
No, it's not. But I'll give you a bunch and you can kind of list them. But just a
Okay.
lot of fun for information.
Well, I was
Also
thinking
there's
good content for you to put out there
I
too is,
know, I know.
sharing stuff like that. It's a whole nother conversation.
I know. Well, you're always thinking, you're always fostering me. So thank you.
I know, always. And it's not just you. Like maybe this is my intuition. Like I'll be doing something and I'll just ping, like, even if it's someone I haven't spoken to in a while, and I'm like, oh, I just saw this. I did it yesterday. I'm like, oh, I just saw this Instagram person that I think would be really good for you to follow and use as sort of like a mentor. And I'll just like take a screenshot and send it to somebody, even if I haven't worked with them for 3 years, but it's like I always have my women in my head all the time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how I roll. So
Love it.
if let's just talk women intuition for a minute. So if somebody like wants to start building this muscle, can you give like, we'll end on this, like, can you give like 3 tips that they can start doing in order to start like working on this side of themselves?
Sure. So what I would say is the notebook. I kind of said that before, but that's really key. So don't just think it. Don't just be like, oh, that was really cool. I was texting my daughter and she was texting me back. Like, no, write it down because there is something about kinesthetically writing it through your body. I mean, if it's not writing, put on your phone, something. So I call it the hits journal, like intuitive hits journal or intuitive hits notebook. Every day, write it down. Things that come up. And they're things that you may not even think are intuitive. But just write them down and they'll make more sense. The other thing is to, look, I'm a meditator. I know everyone doesn't like that word meditate, but take a pause in your day. So it doesn't have to be a full on meditation, clearly not an hour. I know no one seems to have the time, but get yourself into a state. So it may be a seated meditation. It could be a walking meditation. If you're a runner, it could be running, swimming, being outside. Get outside, get your, turn off your devices and get a little quiet. Get to know what's your energy and what's other energy. And I don't mean spirit, like other people's energy. So by doing that is to get quiet. So pick what you like. If it's meditation, let it be meditation. If it's going on a walk in nature, let it be nature. So that would be my second one. And my third one would be and this kind of ties to the first one. When you get the hits, right? Or when you get these things that connect, say thank you and acknowledge them and trust the process. Because it's very easy to say, oh, well, I asked for a rainbow and, I saw a rainbow and it was on Instagram, but that doesn't count, right? So just, you know what, trust the process. And the more you trust the process, the more it's going to happen. Because I think one of the biggest things I get is I can't trust it. I don't know how to trust my intuition. And I can't teach that. I mean, I can guide and facilitate it, but the only one that's going to make you trust is yourself. So just be open to the process, open your mind, open your heart. And like I always say to people, like, what would be the worst thing to not believe it? Like,
Right.
just trust it. Like if you ask for a rainbow and you get a rainbow on an Instagram feed or on the back of a bumper or in the sky, take it. Right. But like a lot of people are like, oh, well, that didn't really count. So now I'm going to ask for a red cardinal, and they start playing this like sign game. One of the books I love, and again, I'm no affiliation at all, but Laura Lynn Jackson, everyone knows her from Goop, right? She was a medium on Goop. Love her. Done some work with her. Her book Signs, Signs, is such a great book. Just a nice, easy book. I think a lot of people would like to read it. It's a lot of fun. And one more thing that I would say is only because it is coming up. I am doing a Notice the Signs Intuition. It's a virtual workshop. It just ties into this. It's really relatively priced. It's like $25 virtual workshop, and it's on Saturday. I'm going to give you the date.
Can you put it in the Foster Women Facebook
Yeah,
page?
I will.
I really
Yes,
want people to start using that page to promote their stuff.
Yes, I absolutely will. So it's June 5th. Notice the Signs, Awaken Your Intuition. It's 12 to 2. It's a Zoom event. And we're just going to talk about these kind of things, the clairs and how to enhance your intuition. And yeah, it's pretty affordable. So I'll put all that information in there, but it is coming up soon. So I wanted to share.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. It's so funny when you said trust the process. I don't even know why I was thinking about this morning. And to be perfectly honest with you, I forgot that we were doing this today. So it wasn't like you were on my mind when I was running, but the thought in my head like went back to like a bad joke where, someone asked God for a sign and then he died and he got to heaven and he says to God, like, why didn't you send me, I asked you to send me a sign. He's like, I sent you a freaking life raft and you were waiting for some bigger sign.
Yes.
And
I know
I
exactly.
don't even remember what I was thinking about this morning, but that thought went through my head on my run this morning. So it was funny because I was like putting two of those things together, like on my run, which is my quiet time. Like sometimes I'll be doing laps around the gym and I'll be like, I don't remember what lap I'm on because I get so in my head gets quiet. Or what I like to say is like, it's actually like my meditation time because I start like literally narrowing my focus and thinking about something so deeply, but it's because nothing else is in there cluttering it so that thought can come through. So I'll turn to the person running with me and I'm like, how many laps is that? I completely was in my head running, or I'm doing reps and I'm not even counting the reps because I'm thinking. So there's that. And then during my run this morning, I had this feeling of like, that was the sign from God, like, trust it. So
just trust it.
And
I know exactly the meme or whatever you said. It's like God keeps asking and he's like, but I gave you the boat. You didn't want the boat.
Yes.
I gave you the airplane. You didn't want the airplane. I gave you the lifeboat. And he's like, oh, yes. Right. So it is. And I think a lot of this exactly is, I say we don't see air, but we trust that air is there. Right. So trust the process. And when you trust the process, you really, it's kind of magical. Like I love saying that word. Like, why can't we say it's magical and believe in miracles and know that there is so much more to this. And when we can open our eyes up to that, we can apply that to whatever you do, right? Just who you are, trust it, trust yourself. And so those would be like my top 3 things to do.
Those were awesome. I love them. And I think that this pandemic was a way for all of us to take pause and to get clarity on how fast we were all moving and what we were all doing. And so I got an email this morning about this women's group, and she was talking about how one out of 5 women are not, or 1 out of 4 women are not going back to the life that they had before the pandemic. And I was like, rah, rah, like, that's not a bad thing. Like, most people were doing shit they didn't want to be doing, or they were commuting to a job that they didn't love. And this was like the silver lining of this pandemic was that it was eye-opening. And it wasn't just for like us in Port Washington, New York. It was all over the world at the same time, where we all got the biggest pauses of our lives to slow the fuck down. And so,
yeah. And you know what? I think you are absolutely right. You hit the nail on the nose. I think that what we're going to see, especially that we're like maybe coming out of it, hopefully, is that so many people now you're going to have, companies saying, okay, it's time to come back. And then like, I don't want to spend 4 hours commuting a day, like, and I can look at it personally. My husband used to travel and he was working and he was commuting every day. And it's like, we have all this time now. Like we could take a drive to the beach. We could go down to the water, and it, we play with the puppy, things that we weren't able to do. And, going back, like, what are we going back to? Our whole mindset has changed. The other thing that's really changed is so many people have really embraced like meditation and spirituality. And look, there's been a lot of bad too, right? Like, not doing healthy things, but really wanting that. I can't tell you how many Reiki programs and meditation programs that I never thought would take off the ground that are all virtual. Everything is virtual. Almost everything I do is virtual. So, I mean, I miss in person though. So too.
Oh shit. I just realized I have to be on a Clubhouse 11 minutes ago.
Okay. You're going to go.
All right. I'm going to go. We're going to go. This is amazing. And this is like the perfect note to end on. So super grateful that you are here today. Don't close your browser. Don't do anything.
Okay.
And everyone, thanks for listening. Tina, the intuitive woman, I will post all of her information in the links below.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Hayley Foster, and I hope you'll join me next time for more inspiring women who are fostering their passions each and every day. Please subscribe wherever you download your podcast and follow us on social media at Fostering 101.